All right, guys, let's do it. Sorry about yesterday. There was some Coinbase Pro went down their API, and I had a lot to do in a short amount of time, and charts weren't updating, so decided to postpone it. First time in 13 episodes, so not a bad track record. So happy belated Halloween. I'm dressed up as David S. Pumpkins. That Saturday Night Live clip is so funny. I love this suit. I want to wear it, just day to day, but I think people will be confused by it. So hopefully sometime I'll get invited to some crypto thing and I can just wear this suit for no reason and confuse everybody. That'd be awesome. So yeah, let me check the chat really quick. Make sure everything, no one's saying like they can't see me or something. Please stand up. Yeah, dude, I'll show you guys this. This is the David S. Pumpkins outfit. It's all pumpkins all the time. That's all it is. It's got matching pants. It's pretty much the most Halloweenish I've dressed up since I was like a little kid. Not a huge Halloween guy. I like the holiday. I don't know. I just don't like dressing up that much for whatever reason. So this is a good mix for me. I get best of both worlds. Halloween, and I get to not, I don't know, look like a Teletubby or something. Beats me. Yeah. So happy Halloween, belated. I hope everybody had a great Halloween. All of this was written yesterday. Didn't really update it because not much has happened outside of the Coinbase Pro API going down pretty much right as I was going to stream. We see a gap here on the chart, which now has been filled, but wasn't a real gap anyway. Trading kept going on in Bitcoin, BTC USD. So while it's a gap on the chart, not really a gap. I mean, trading went on. There was volume. It just isn't in their record there. So it was a spooky day yesterday. We had this nice little pump here and nice new pivot high. We had a pivot low to a pivot high, so volatility. But have not really seen much of it since. There really hasn't made anything. So yeah, whatever. We're still kind of where we were yesterday. I don't think too much has changed. So quick reminder, I guess this doesn't even matter anymore, but the 0.01 Bitcoin giveaway was announced yesterday. Somebody won on Twitter. I don't know. Good for them. Congrats. Happy. I'll be doing another one in September. Don't worry if you didn't win. And the merch stream giveaway, I have to announce those winners tonight. Not gonna lie to you guys. Did not pick them yet, but I'll do that after the stream. It's not a big deal. So keep your eyes peeled tonight. I'll have the bot probably spamming who won, because if you won and you feel comfortable giving me your shipping information, I'll send you whatever you won. If you don't, that's fine. For people internationally, we had this talk earlier. Maybe because shipping is pretty crazy. Like if you won third place and you get some stickers, the shipping might cost more than the stickers. So contact me. We'll figure it out. Maybe we can just do like Bitcoin instead for those. But whoever won the shirt, whoever won first place, they're getting that shirt. Don't care what the shipping is. So whatever. It is all good. All right, so there's been a lot of news lately. Hasn't been that much price action since last Friday. Here we are again, a week later from that big, awesome, euphoric pump. And there's been a lot in the news. That pump was a day after the previous episode, so we didn't get to cover this, but probably the biggest news going on, in my mind, is last Friday. I will say this is a rare event where the news may have happened before the pump, and usually the news kind of happens into the pump and maybe exaggerates it, but President Xi Jinping publicly supported China going, quote, all in on blockchain technology across their economy. It is important to note that blockchain was used, the word, not Bitcoin necessarily. You're probably going to hear that a lot from people who are trying to, I would say people trying to downplay this news, likely people who are short or bearish. To me, it's crazy to interpret that as not bullish. It's insanity to me to think that isn't bullish news. China, the largest economy in the world, fastest growing economy in the world, highest population in the world, for their leader to say, we are in an economic sense, we want to go all in, which is words I don't ever use. So I don't think Xi Jinping, probably not a great trader, but for him to say they want to go all in on blockchain technology, for me, is the biggest news ever for Bitcoin. Probably, certainly in the last 5 years, plus, maybe ever. I would say ever. I think a lot of newer people don't realize this about Bitcoin is even a few years ago, I want to say 3 years ago, possibly even before just right before the giant rally in 2017, yes, people had heard of Bitcoin. Absolutely. There's still lots of those people who have heard of it and like wish they got in earlier but aren't in it and don't plan on or whatever. So many people, even a few years ago, just had no concept of what it is. It wasn't a real thing. It was honestly borderline conspiracy theory. It just wasn't a real concept in people's minds. It wasn't. People didn't acknowledge it. No government had really acknowledged it in any serious sense. This is the first example of that I've seen. Certainly unarguably to this degree. But this is huge news, guys. This is huge. There's been a lot of evolving in Bitcoin in the last year or 2 years. Even throughout 2018, when price just went down, there was so much fundamental news going on. If you want fundamental news, there you go. That is the craziest, probably fundamental news ever for Bitcoin. Even though the word Bitcoin wasn't used, that doesn't matter. Like, this is fundamental. The world, the biggest economic player, saying this is a thing that we acknowledge as valuable and we need to embrace it. And yes, obviously China is going to make their own, probably whatever, China currency, and maybe they'll do bad things with it, maybe they'll do good things with it, but it doesn't matter. It's bringing awareness globally. Other countries are going to hear that announcement. Other countries are going to have to mull that idea over in their brains. What does this mean? That China's doing this, maybe we should do this. Especially smaller and likely allied countries to China are thinking, well, China's doing this, we should probably do this too. There's only good press in Bitcoin for one reason, and that reason is because so few people actually understand Bitcoin and embrace Bitcoin. So bad news, good news means that it's on people's minds whose minds have never thought of Bitcoin. Period. I don't know. I can't say enough about it. And clearly the market reacted to this. There's no doubt the market reacted to this. I would say that this is likely U.S. traders, though. I don't think that the pump really was China's president saying China go all in and then China buying it. This seems probably like retail, maybe institutional investors playing off that news pump. We went from 7,300 to 10,600. I'm not sure. I can look. It's not really worth looking, but this price action happened in a very short period of time. It's 3.7. With less than one trading day. In less than one trading day, it went from 7,380-ish to 10,600-ish. That's the fourth largest pump in Bitcoin history, I think, percent-wise. It was a lot of fun in here for you guys who were here Friday. That was a complete shit show. I loved it. That's why I love Bitcoin. Well, that is a reason I love Bitcoin. I love the community, euphoria, pump, excitement. There's really nothing like seeing something you believe in show you why you believe in it. Say it's just like a perfect example of you believe in this for whatever reasons you do, but here's proof of it. Bam, like 40% candle in a day. That is Bitcoin that we know and remember. Huge pumps, huge dumps. And we haven't seen stuff like that really since July. So it's been many months. It was a great time in here. We had our first all caps party. We'll have another one at 16K whenever we get there. It's about the China news. Hopefully, in my mind, hopefully this starts what I would say is like a crypto race globally. There's no way that the U.S. government didn't hear of this public statement. There's no way the Fed didn't hear of this public statement by China's president. Like every big player in currency knows that statement was made. And the ideal situation is to see other countries and other monetary central points jumping into this and creating like a race. They probably are not vested. They want to get in on this or whatever before China. So whether that's making their own currency or purchasing assets in decentralized currencies that exist, I think that's a very high chance. When China speaks, people listen. We've seen that in the news for months now. China says, don't call our president a panda bear, and then South Park is no longer showed in China, like the next day. They are big, loud voices in the economy, in the global economy right now. It really is. It cannot be upplayed enough. Does not mean moon tomorrow, but it cannot be acknowledged enough. It's such a big deal. So on to some other kind of related stuff. According to a joint report conducted by tech giant IBM and the Official Monetary and Financial Institutions Forum, global central banks now admit that CBDCs would be a good substitute for cash, and in some use cases, such as sale merchants and network connections. IBM also mentioned that they expect a central bank to issue a digital currency within 5 years. I'm going to go ahead and make a speculation here. Something to do with China's announcement. This is evidence of a race, and perhaps the race isn't actually being run yet, but this is people gearing up for it. No one has ever acknowledged that a digital currency will be used globally at this level ever. Holy crap, like this is crazy news too. 5 years is not a long time, and for such large players in economies to be acknowledging these things kind of all at once, I think is very telling. There's a lot of bear sentiment still, of course, even after this large pump. That makes sense. We've had months of selling. We've had some pumps during that time, but people are still skeptical. I don't judge them for that. I don't look down on them for that. I think that's being logical, and that's comes from a sense of self-preservation. We've seen 4 months of selling, and now we saw a massive pump. We have been kind of conditioned to be skeptical. This is, in the last episode, I was saying, Bitcoin always purges out the weak hands. It always gets rid of the people who don't believe in it. And this is like maybe one of those circumstances where it's like, if you are denying this news, you probably aren't a believer, or maybe you're new to the space, and I can understand that because the space has changed a lot in the last 2 years, like I said, and it's not the same space that a lot of people entered in. It's really starting to cater to retail and into institutional investors at a very fast and increasing pace. To back that up, Canada has all but approved a Bitcoin BTF or ETF. It's not actually signed yet, but to my understanding, all of the check marks are there. They have said, as long as all these check marks are there, you are approved, and they are. And so that is planned to start first quarter 2020. So Canada gonna go and beat the U.S. into an ETF for Bitcoin. I don't think that's really a surprise to anyone. The U.S. seems to be lagging here. They seem to be resistant, probably with good reason. However, I think this is very dangerous for their monetary stance in the world. The next thing we'll talk about is the Fed cut rate, but the monetary world is changing regardless, and crypto is a player in that right now, and it really can't be denied that it is a player. You can deny, or you can believe whichever kind of effect that will have on it is fine, but it is a player, and it has never been a player before. Okay, so yeah, Fed cut interest rates again. Is that yesterday, the day before? I don't know, a few days ago. It's only a 0.25% cut, 25 basis points. Something, we watched that in here live, and I think a lot of people heard for themselves that the Fed was very unclear about the future. If you go back and look at the transcript and don't look at the follow-up questions, I could see someone saying, oh, they were very clear. But they really weren't. They were very unclear about the future. They said, we think what we're doing is the right choice, and we don't see any reason to change it. And then added the caveat, except if there's new factors. Almost every question was, what are the factors? What would cause you to make a change? What, whatever. And they just completely were dodging. The chairman was just dodging questions left and right. He was reiterating what he had just said over and over and over again, saying there's, all of the factors. That's not an answer. Literally, that's not an answer. If you want to say all of the factors and you want to answer the question, then you need to go list all the factors in a row and say those are the factors, all of them. Saying all of them could mean, like, I don't know, cheeseburger sales have dropped, so we're going to raise the, they dodge questions left and right. I can easily, I'll say this, I'll make a prediction, and I'm fine with being wrong. With Trump's rhetoric after the cut, I would not be surprised if the U.S. cuts rates to 0 by the end of the year. The Fed said they don't have plans for cuts for the rest of the year or whatnot. They didn't expressly say it. I would not be surprised if we cut to 0, possibly less, but my bet will be 0 by 2020. Trump was not happy with the Fed's decision. I don't think the markets were really happy. We saw a rally in indices. We did see, I think, new all-time highs, but I think they sold off very quickly, and they were not a very significant move. We were already kind of really close to their small rally. The market had built in this cut. There was according to, I think, CME groups or whatever, it was a 96% chance of a cut. This wasn't a surprise to the market, so that was a good thing in that sense. However, this was a small cut. They're going to say, we don't have plans, the factors and what be. We think this is appropriate. And to me, there's a lot of uncertainty watching it. And I could even just see it in the guy's, kind of body language and the way he spoke. He seemed very on script. And of course, the Fed is always on script. But this, to me, I've watched all of them. I've seen every rate cut this year. I guess technically in the last 10 years, because there hasn't been any. And this, to me, was the most scripted. He didn't really answer any questions outside of referring to what he had just said. I don't think he offered any new information from the reporters' questions at the end. So we'll see. Feel free to call me out if I'm wrong. Totally possible. I'm not a Fed expert or monetary policy expert, but with Trump's reaction, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on the Fed, and I think there's going to be a lot of pressure from the markets to continue cuts. They've only ramped up repo and overnight lending. Just makes sense. So we'll see. Last piece of big news, I think that probably not a lot of people noticed, likely because it doesn't really apply to them directly, is about Mt. Gox. Mt. Gox is probably not familiar to everyone, although you probably heard of it, just not really in depth or really understanding what it is. Mt. Gox was probably the worst thing to happen to Bitcoin ever. In 2014, it was, I think, responsible for 95% of trading volume at the time. There were, we didn't have these other exchanges that we have today. A lot of them are very new. And Mt. Gox was hacked. I'm not going to get into whether it was hacked or conspiracy or exit scam or whatever, but that's the official story. It was hacked for 850,000 Bitcoin. And I know you guys today are thinking, holy shit, that is a crazy amount. You have to think the price in 2014 was very low compared to now. So at the time, this was $450 million. That's still a lot. Nothing compared to what it is today. But it was hacked, and this, sent the price of Bitcoin, it destroyed at the time confidence in Bitcoin, let's say it that way, because it had such a high trading volume compared to the total market. There were about 24,000 people, if I remember correctly, impacted by this directly. They lost their funds. They lost their Bitcoin. That's why I'm always saying things when people ask me, is Coinbase safe? Is Binance safe? Coinbase is likely the safest exchange, yes. But safe doesn't mean you won't lose your Bitcoin. This happened in 2014. It's now almost 2020. 24,000 people are still sitting there without their reparation, their, what do they call it? Rehabilitation. So the news about this is that I believe this year that was supposed to settle with rehabilitation. And as far as I know, the rehabilitation is going to be in US dollars, which is another point I bring up a lot. If your Bitcoin gets hacked off of, if the exchange gets hacked and they lose their Bitcoin, they literally can't give it to you. They don't have it. So how do they pay back their creditors or investors? They do it in dollars. They don't do it in Bitcoin. And so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Mt. Gox is going to be settled in dollars and likely will be the dollar value at when it was hacked, not today. I don't think that these people are going to be getting $9,200 a coin. I think they'll be getting like 400 or whatever it was. Bitcoin is not safe unless it's in your wallet. It's not your keys, not your coins. And that's a risk we all take to trade as we send our Bitcoin to exchange to trade it. It's a risk reward. But do not trust exchanges no matter how great their history is, how great their security is, because if they have an issue, there's very little they can do. They can have insurance and they can then be compensated themselves. So like Coinbase, I think you certainly wouldn't see almost 6 years pass, probably be rehabilitation very quickly because they're insured, but you would be paid back in dollars. You wouldn't be paid back in Bitcoin. They're not going to, Mt. Gox creditors aren't going to market buy 850,000 Bitcoin to pay back their creditors. That's not really reasonable even. I'm not even sure if there's 1 million Bitcoin on depth charts across exchanges right now. So it wouldn't really be possible. Certainly Mt. Gox doesn't deserve fairness really because their customers were screwed and haven't gotten fairness. But I think we can all kind of agree that it wouldn't even really be fair to them because if those coins aren't for sale, they can't buy them. I don't know. So yeah, that's all for the news. Great bullish news. Mt. Gox being pushed back to second quarter of 2020. Hopefully gets pushed back again. Sorry for everybody who's affected, but the farther back that's pushed, probably the better. These people that were affected, will they want to buy their Bitcoin back after this experience? Maybe not. I won't speculate too much on this. I don't expect it to be bullish news once those people are compensated. Let's put it that way. Don't really have anything else really to say about that. But so Bitcoin, not a lot to say outside of what I've already said. The day after my last stream, I'm pulling this up here, we had this dope pump. It was awesome. Love it. Hopefully we get another one of these soon. Let's see, how far away from the magic date was this? 16 hours after the magic date. We saw the fourth biggest pump in Bitcoin history. Awesome. That pump was certainly at the peak of people's sentiment being down. People selling. I talk about that a lot in chat. People are like, we need new money. We need new investors to go up. No, we don't. There were, I would argue, almost no new investors at 7,300, 7,200. People don't get excited till it's going up. Maybe there were some new investors as it pumped, but sentiment was probably at the lowest low. And when that happens is a good time. Same with when it's at its highest. It's a good time to look for a price reversal. Here we are. A lot of people sold. I remember every single day we were at 7.3, people coming in. And I want to say close to 100% of people were saying, I'm going to buy lower, I sold, or whatever. And so Bitcoin, in typical Bitcoin fashion, has not given any of them an opportunity to get back in. That's what it does. That's why belief comes into it. It's nothing magical. It's simply, if you don't have a belief that Bitcoin is going to have a long-term future, then you probably aren't going to be able to hold it till it does. It's just a very important factor here. Something, actually, I didn't even write this down, but another Bitcoin-related thing here is with that pump, CME closed on Friday. A lot of that pump was while they were closed. It reopened Sunday night or whatever. It created a very large CME gap that we have not seen completely filled yet. I forget who pointed this out, but they had a good point. A lot of it was filled, because technically the gap, I like to count wicks if they're within the gap time. 9,560 down to 9,000 flat was filled. So that's a large percent of it. However, if you look at the candle close on Friday and Thursday, the wick, these are the two values that I would look at to say this gap is closed. Still not a huge fan of gaps. I am warming up to the idea of CME being a big player. But to fully close this gap, we're going to have to see as low as 8,880, and we are not there yet. Definitely this is a large gap, or definitely we've had a lot of this gap fill technically. I would say more than 50%. So is that enough? I don't know. I'm not an expert on these gaps. But it does seem that almost everyone now, after this big pump, is saying, I'm going to buy in at 8,800. I'm going to buy in. They're looking at this gap. And price is so close to this gap that, again, I'm going to be skeptical. Though I've been wrong before saying gaps won't fill. I'm going to be skeptical here. Price came very close to filling it. Did not fill it. Bullishly engulfed on the 4-hour, kind of out of it. Now we're doing maybe kind of an eve-ish bottom on the 4-hour here on CME. If Bitcoin pumps and breaks 10.6 or whatever, man, that's going to leave a lot of money waiting down here at the 8s, the same way it did at the 7s. For me, I will take that as confirmation of bearish trend over. If we break 10.6, bearish trend is just over in my mind. All opinions are welcome, but that's going to be two different legs where essentially 100% of the market, at least kind of retail market, is waiting for lower and doesn't get it. And that is Bitcoin 101. Whether it's up or down, people are waiting for a price, it doesn't come, and then it moves away pretty much indefinitely from that price. That's how you build FOMO, doing it in steps. This seems pretty beautifully crafted. You guys know I'm bullish, but there absolutely is a possibility of breaking down here. We haven't seen a ton of strength after that pump. We sold off to 8.9, 20-ish. That's a pretty big sell-off, and we've been setting higher lows technically. So it's anyone's guess. There's not a lot to say here. We're just in one of these sideways periods. And I know it's not helpful, but it really is either going to break up or down, and I don't really think TA is going to have anything to do with it. I think it's going to come down to psychology of the market. Once we figure out and coil up close enough price over enough time, are most people waiting for lower or are most people buying for higher? And Bitcoin's probably going to go the opposite way of whatever the consensus is. Really is as simple as that. I think the odds of this CME gap being filled are really very good, because they always seem to get filled so far, pretty much. At least 90%. But we are above this yellow trend line here. I've seen a lot of TA across the groups I'm in of saying, we're still in the bearish trend. No, we're not. We're not in the bearish trend from the high, period. We're not. Doesn't matter what you say, doesn't matter how you draw it, we're just not. Nobody likes this line. For the 5 months or so I've had it up, no one's liked it. Don't care. This is the bearish trend, this top of this channel here. We are 100% above it. There's no arguing it in my mind. That doesn't mean that we're gonna moon. I love saying that. But we are above this yellow line. We have not been above this yellow line for any amount of time since we started selling off. We even see after the pump this quick sell-off to back test it. Not the best volume, but pretty consistent with the rest of this ranging. We're above the bear trend, and so that's a lot of the reasoning why I say if we break 10.6, we're leaving this behind us. We're resuming the bull run, and really, this will be very punishing to the bears, more so than even this 40% candle, which really was savage, man. That is, we saw a lower low and then sideways to like follow the pattern we had seen for weeks of lower lows and then sideways and drop, and just stuck it to the bears, man. That I can't even imagine the liquidations that went on and all the tears, in that day. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 attempts at this yellow line. We've been above it multiple times. I think we even had kind of some candles close above it. Yep. But this is looking different. And certainly there are new trend lines you can draw, and that's what people are then arguing as the kind of grand bear trend. But you can keep redrawing. I can draw one from here to here and say 1100 or 11,000, whatever. This is the big line. This is it. I think that if people say this isn't it, I think that that's bias. I think that they are probably just short and bearish and are going to keep saying it's bearish until it breaks 14,000. And then probably find a reason to say it's still bearish after that. So, whatever. Yeah, so I wish I had a crystal ball for you guys here. Really just going to come down to, do we break the pivot high or the pivot low here? You can see I have them labeled here. If we break the pivot high, we're probably going to go up to test the pivot high 2 at close to 10,000. If we break the pivot low at 8, 9 something, we're going to test down here. I think if we break the pivot low at 8, 9, gap filling is likely. This is a day-by-day thing, as crypto tends to be a good amount of the time. Very rarely do we know really with much confidence what's going to happen next. Definitely something interesting here is that the bearish yellow trend line catches up with the bottom of the CME gap on November 3rd, almost at what time? Probably like 4 p.m. Eastern time. That could be a place to look. If we break this pivot low, I think this would be a good timing and price to be looking for price to go to. Something that really worried me off this pump was, oh man, we pumped, CME's closed. Monday, we might just drop right underneath and go to this gap again. Just like we have so many times, we've fallen out of this trend line like 14 times. That really worried me, and I was actually very relieved to see that time passed and that this trend line has been coming down into the CME gap. That's making me feel more confident in a bullish continuation here. With this line coming down, we're able to fill the gap as of like the 3rd of November without falling back in. I do not want to see Bitcoin fall back into this bearish trend on this yellow line. That we've seen it so many times. Wouldn't blow my mind. It's almost expected, but I really don't want to see that. That'd be very bad. So maybe not a terrible place for a stop loss. Not financial advice, but as of right now, 8,800-ish. Really would expect more selling if we go back in, because you can see it very clearly. Every time we got rejected by this yellow line, we saw very large and strong sell-offs. Of varying sizes, obviously, but a very reactive point. And so staying above it, as long as we're above it, I am full bullish for continuation. Not a clue in the world when we'll make a new high for the year, but as long as we're above this yellow line, things are pretty good. So yeah, I had this written, but now this is past. I really was looking for a 9,600 close yesterday. We did not get it. We did get a rally. We got close to it on a wick. 9,600 would have been such a great setup for November. It would be bullish engulfing on the monthly into November, which November is very, very historically and statistically a strong month for Bitcoin. There's been very few Novembers in the 10 November history that Bitcoin has where it hasn't been, or where it hasn't put on some strong gains. So unfortunately, we didn't have that close. And typical Bitcoin, like who the hell knows at this point? We didn't have a bullish engulfing on the monthly. It doesn't mean anything directly. The only thing it means is that we don't have that extra bull case for the monthly chart that we could have. Certainly stinks. You can blame Coinbase Pro or whatever, but it doesn't matter. The monthly candles close where they're supposed to, whatever that means. And Coinbase being up or down is irrelevant. It was going to close here regardless. These market makers aren't deciding in the moment where to close things. They have this planned out on some kind of algorithm or calculation. It's not up to Coinbase. I don't blame them. I certainly think it was a big oopsie on their part, and really kind of hurts the trust that I think people have been losing in Coinbase with their fees increasing. This has been multiple downtimes now recently, more so than I remember in the past, which doesn't make sense because the volume was much higher in the past and they didn't have these downtimes. Seems like kind of sloppy, in my opinion. Yeah, that's basically it for the day. PSA, 2 things. I should have said this at the beginning. Crap. One, when Coinbase Pro went down, you guys, if you were here or follow my Twitter, you would know they entered cancel only mode. If you ever see cancel only mode on Coinbase Pro, that means that every order or every limit order on Coinbase has been cleared. You need to go back in and set your limit orders if you want them. They won't be there and they won't care if you complain that they were cleared and didn't fill now. You need to go refill them. And second thing, BitMEX. BitMEX has had some kind of data leak where I believe it was only username and email, but it would be a good OPSEC and a good practice to go change your passwords now. If you haven't changed them in a while, you should do that anyway. But data was compromised. Change your email password, change your account passwords that are associated with that email. There certainly were many impacted users, so don't be stupid. Don't think it won't happen to you. It can. Crypto is the Wild West, and there's nobody here to protect you but you, so do the best you can for yourself. All right. I think that is it. I think that's all I got. Other than David Pumpkins. I love this seat. Yeah, I love it. All right. Yep. I think we're good. I don't know how long that was. Like 40 minutes. That's pretty good length for a video. I don't have really plans tonight. Tonight's a cold, slow night for me, so I'll probably be around. I'm going to upload this video now. But thanks for joining us. This was the 13th episode of Crown Crypto, and it was supposed to be on Halloween, so I don't know, it's spooky. It's weird how things happen like that, just like line up. But anyway, all right, I'm going to stop the recording. 38 minutes is pretty good. Maybe we can, like I said, I don't have anything to do, so I'll hang out for a while I'm uploading this, and we can all chat. So I will see you guys in chat, and probably have a market update tomorrow because I feel like we're going to see some movement soon. So catch you then, guys. See ya.